Christine Jamieson is with the Department of Theological Studies at Concordia University. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
The Pope is being called a reformer. Do you think he was able to make fundamental changes to the Catholic Church?
Well, I think we have to keep in mind that the Catholic Church is a slow-moving institution. But I think he did make reforms. I think he did make changes. I think one of the key ways that he changed the church was to move it from being really intensely hierarchical to being a more kind of a collaborative, encountering church. The synod that he called, which has been ongoing for the last 3 years, is a consultative process among all Catholics around the world. And I think that is really an example of what Francis taught was the importance of collaboration, the importance of listening and consulting and dialogue. So I think that was an important moment of reform for him. And also I think his attentiveness to the environment. In the document, the ecclesial letter that came out with Laudate Si, Care for Our Common Home, was really, I think, a breakthrough for bringing this issue in terms of environmental change and the environmental crisis, bringing that to the attention to the world and certainly to the church. But I think those were two areas of reform.
And also, it was interesting, watching the people react and how much affection they seem to hold for this man. How do you think he will most likely be remembered here in Canada?
Well, I really believe that I think his important legacy here in Canada was his visit in the summer of 2022 when he came to apologize to Indigenous peoples because of the Catholic Church's role in the residential school system. I think that was an important moment for Francis, for the Catholic Church, for Francis, and for Indigenous peoples in Canada. I think that his apologies were heartfelt and that he encountered Indigenous peoples in Canada. And that was a significant moment for Indigenous peoples, and I think for Canada generally, that encounter and those apologies. And his being who he was, his empathy and his compassion, and his real desire to listen to the stories of Indigenous peoples and all of Canada, I think. I think that is really one of the most important legacies that he brought for Canadian people.
And very, very quickly, because unfortunately we're having some audio problems, but if you could just tell us very quickly, we know that there are very strict protocols that follow the death of a pope. What can we expect to see in the coming days?
Well, he's being laid in the coffin, I believe, this evening, or maybe he already has been. And so there'll be a kind of a few days of before he's buried, and the burial. Well, the funeral will take place in St. Peter's Square. And then, but he has really simplified the funeral process. He's a man that really emphasized simplicity, didn't want to emphasize his power. So we'll see that definitely played out in his funeral and what takes place after that. And then, of course, there'll be the conclave, which will be the choosing of the next pope. And that'll be a very important procedure once the pope is buried.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for taking time out to speak to us tonight.
You're welcome.